Welcome to another episode of Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. Thanks so much for pressing play. This week, have the opportunity to talk about a new board game that I've had the pleasure of watching being developed and play tested and come together. Really excited to talk with the guys from Triceratops Games about it. But it's called JAQ, Journey Adventure Quest, and it's a new drafting board game with resource management, cool mechanics, challenging monsters, fun lore, and multiple paths to victory. So we'll be talking with Jesse, Stacy, Tommy, Noel, and Brandon Beam from Triceratops Games. They all joined to talk all about the game, and we actually demonstrate some actual play. I think that's the first on this show, doing some actual play of a game. Also, we get into why the name Triceratops, and it's actually pretty cool. Wait until you hear about the artist for the game. It's a great story. We give shout outs to our favorite board games or games worth knowing, reminisce a little bit about the early days of Magic the Gathering, and more. So I hope you enjoy the show. This is a really, I know a couple of the folks involved with Triceratops Games, but I'm having them on the show not just because I know them, but because this game really, I think, deserves to succeed and get out there, and it'll be kickstarting very soon. So listen in, and please go to the show notes page at shaneplays.com. Go to the Kickstarter for Journey Adventure Quest and click sign up if it's still in pre-launch. And if it's already launched, please consider supporting the game. But anyway, lots of cool, geeky fun to come. So on we go with the show. Thanks again for listening.
Shall we play a game?
Why, yes. I believe we shall.
Oh, I got a live one here.
Getting geeky in your podcasts. It's Shane Plays Geek Talk, a journey into the things we love. I'm your host, Shane Stacks. And as I like to remind people, even though the name of the show is Shane Plays Geek Talk, it's not always about games. It's just when I play. I might talk about movies. I might talk about comic books. I might talk about retro computing, who knows, TV shows, whatever. But a lot of the times I am talking about games, video games, and tabletop role-playing games quite often, but occasionally board games. And today, not only are we going to talk about a cool board game, tabletop game, but we're going to be talking to the creators of the game. And I've played the game. It's a very cool game. It's going to be kickstarted soon, which is why I'm doing this podcast now, because I want to make sure that people know about this game and help get it out there, because it's really well done. But we're going to be talking about Journey Adventure Quest, JAQ, Journey Adventure Quest. And as their Kickstarter page describes it, if I can find the handy dandy notes that I had pulled up a second ago, it's card drafting, card stacking, loot grabbing, and boss battling. Well, I think that the loot grabbing has been slightly adjusted since then. We'll talk to the creators about that. All right, so it's Journey Adventure Quest from Triceratops Games, and I have live on the Discords, although this show will not go out live, it'll be edited and stuff. I have Triceratops Games, the developers and whatnot, the movers and shakers behind JAQ. I've got Jesse, Stacy, who, as I understand it, did the majority of the design. Then Tommy Noel, who did a lot of the design and refinement and playtesting and just all kinds of stuff. And then Brandon Beam, who is, I think, and we'll let them clarify, handling a lot of the legal side and did a lot of the writing for the lore and the flavor text and things like that. But I could have that completely wrong, so we'll let them explain all that. But as I understand it, although that there's three of you involved, for a while, this was Jesse Stacy's baby. So Jesse, welcome to Shane Plays, and why don't you tell us a little bit about JAQ, Journey Adventure Quest? What is this game?
Yeah, Shane, thanks for having us on. So this is a drafting board game, Seven Wonders, Dungeon. There's a dungeon draft game, Sushi Go Party. They're kind of like some big draft games that a lot of people play. So you got a hand of cards. And I grew up playing Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon and all those kind of games. And man, I love draft formats. I played a lot of World of Warcraft card game. And I love the draft format. There's just something to pick about picking a card and being excited about that. And just knowing that I made the best pick for me to obtain victory. And so the whole game is kind of based around that premise where you get a handful of cards and you're picking cards to your best path to victory. So we are fighting monsters. You're pulled in many directions. You got your own adventures you're trying to complete because you're trying to get, 3 from the Red Guild, and you're trying to get some helmets, and you're trying to complete your own things for points. You're trying to battle out people in quest and what the primary quest is. So it could be who has the most helmets, and you're battling other people for helmets, and you're also trying to defeat this monster all in the process. So you get pulled in a lot of directions. So that's a lot of fun. It's a decision making, and it's also a resource management game. Just because you are trying to manage that I have enough attack, knowledge, and defense to defeat the monster, and also that I don't take on too much blood because those are negative victory at the end of the game.
Right. Blood is a token type. You've got coins, victory point, and blood are kind of token types that you can clear points, I guess. So one thing I want to make sure I'm describing the game right. So in front of us, because Tommy, who we'll talk to here in a moment, the game's not even officially out yet, although I've seen the prototype and played the prototype, and it's beautiful. I mean, this game is refined and polished. Before it's even out yet, it has more polish on it than some games that I see on the shelves. But Tommy has actually developed a tabletop simulator version for times like this to, kind of play test and take a look at while people are talking about it right now before the game's out. But would you characterize this as a board game at all? I mean, it's obviously a tabletop game, but like, what would you characterize it as a card game with components, or, how would you characterize it?
I'd definitely say this is a board game.
Okay.
I know, I go to Gen Con every year. I've been going to Gen Con for 15 years. It's the biggest board gaming convention. And this is Seven Wonders is, top 5 board games for me. And it's very similar to that, even down to the idea of I have my own little player board, and there's lots of cards.
Every player gets their own board, and they have cards and tokens. So let me back up just a little bit, since you were talking about Magic the Gathering. Mm-hmm. And so I would say this game has a lot of Magic the Gathering in it. It also has a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in it. Although it is not a role-playing game. I do not want to. It's not even like Hero Quest. I don't want to give the wrong kind of. It's definitely played with different mechanics. But you're talking about Magic the Gathering. Dude, I can remember when Magic the Gathering first came out in the early 90s. I was in the United Kingdom in the Air Force, and the local comic book shop was like, "Oh, there's this new game," and everybody's playing it, right? Nobody had any idea that this game was going to go on to be as big as it was. I mean, it was obviously an immediate hit, but I can remember, back in the day, you would ante up. That was part of the rules. You would ante a card, and then whoever won took that card.
Yeah.
I can remember people anteing Black Lotus and not having a clue.
And just
all right, whatever you
being
want.
sad. Being sad now.
Yeah, 10 years later, crying. I can remember, and then a few years later, I can remember a friend of mine who had bought boxes of boosters and boxes of decks and kept them sealed. A few years later, he's trading those things for cars. Yeah. So to watch the meteoric rise of Magic has been, it blows my mind, because we were playing and I had cards that were probably worth buku and didn't even know it. So it was a lot of fun.
Carrying them around in your pocket, that's just kind of what we did. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Black Lotus, no problem. What was it, Mox Pearl? Yeah, okay, well, I'll ante that. No big deal. Hey, you want to trade 3 lands for that Mox Pearl? Sure. We didn't know. Had no clue. Anyway, I don't want to camp out there too long, but
but you can definitely. This game definitely has a lot of inspiration from that stuff. I grew up on that stuff, and that's what I think I chase in playing board games now, is the itch of those competitive feels that I used to have when we played those games. I would say that I made the shift to Pokemon pretty quick, and I would even say some of this art style that Emmy does, it feels very busting out of the pages of some of that stuff to me, and that's why I think she crushed the art for us.
And that's a good time.
Yeah,
that's a good time to transition over to Tommy. I want to make sure to introduce our other 2 guests here, but one of our guests, his daughter did the majority, the lion's share of art for, and it looks amazing. Okay, a lot of people might think, what is it? No, it looks fantastic. But so our second person to introduce is Tommy Noel, who I've known for years. I've gamed with Tommy for Tommy. I know for a fact that Tommy and that Brandon are hardcore, tabletop gamers, board gamers. They board game like I tabletop role play. Although I love board games and card games, I spend more time probably playing tabletop role playing. But Tommy is like crazy about board games and tabletop games. So Tommy, first of all, welcome to Shane Plays. Glad after all these years to finally have a chance to have you on. So first of all, I want you to tell us about your daughter's artwork for this game, which looks fantastic. And then I want to tell you I want you to tell us what attracted you to Jesse's game to the point where you got involved that you did. Because you've been telling me about this game even before you really started, hey, we need to make this game. Years ago, you were talking about, hey, this guy you knew was making a game that was really cool. And you guys were already, yeah.
I want to reverse the order. One day, a couple of years ago, he sat me down and played some board game, and I was like, and I played this board game, and I was just kind of like in awe that, yes, I was like, you made this?
Yeah, I remember you a couple of years ago, you saying something like that. You were this
is really, really good. It was amazing. And so, like a little bit right after COVID started, we had a conversation with Jesse. He talked about this board game and said, "Hey, what do we need to do to make this board game?" And we decided to partner up and venture out, try to figure out how to make a board game, how to take it where it was at to where it's at today. And part of the process is trying to find an artist. And my daughter is like one of the most proud dads ever. When I talk about my daughter's art, but at the very beginning, we were, she drew some pieces for the game, and they were very, very good, but yet also a very beginner art. I remember having a conversation with her about like, we want her to do the art for the game, but we also want the art to be, production quality. I just, so we were, basically kind of test her out, and she was all up for that. And I think it was forgot what it was, but when she came out with these little goblins, and like we just knew, it was just like she crushed it, and we were like so amazed with her. And then she just keeps pumping out art that we just absolutely love, and it's just so much fun watching. That's part of making this game. Watching her do this art was one of the most enjoyable parts of the experience, because me and Jesse and Brandon will be like, "Oh, what are you coming out today? What are you coming out?" And then she would tweak it, and then we'd be like, "Oh, I love it." And then she would start her next piece of art. She actually worked all summer long, 5 hours a day throughout the week, and just did like a regiment all summer, pumped out, I don't know, about 150 pieces of art.
Well, it looks fantastic. And I want to say again, because this is an, podcast or an audio format, go to shaneplays.com, and there will be the show notes for this episode, or just search for Journey Adventure Quest on Kickstarter and take a look at the art. It looks fantastic. This isn't an enthusiastic dad being unobjective about, my daughter's a great artist, but it's really like stick figure. No, this stuff is really good. I mean, I've been doing Inktober for a few years now, and my art has gotten better, but I was getting really proud of it. I was like, wow, that looks really good. And then I went over to your house one day, and she showed me some of her art, and I was just burned to the ground. I was like, I'm not going to draw anything ever again, because that looks so good.
I do want to say your art is becoming pretty amazing yourself. So not to pump you up, but I've been enjoying watching you do Inktober.
Yeah, Inktober's. I did a show on it like a year ago with the creator of Inktober, and I've impressed myself. And that sounds like I'm bragging, but I'm not. I'm like, wow, I can't believe I drew that. And I've got a friend who's in animation and drawing, and they're like, drawing's like a muscle. The more you work it. But yeah, it's been. I started it off as a goof years ago. I was posting stick figure drawings as a joke, like, here I'm doing Inktober, dear, like a big joke. And then I kept with it, and suddenly stuff started happening. So, but I appreciate that. But yeah, this game's really good. People go to Kickstarter, look for Journey Adventure Quest, or go to the show notes at shaneplays.com. There'll be a Kickstarter link there. And one of the reasons this game is going to Kickstarter is at June 10th. What day are y'all kickstarting or starting the Kickstarter?
June 8th.
June 8th. Okay. So one of the reasons that this will come out probably 2 or 3 weeks before the Kickstarter, and there's a reason for that. I want people to go to the Kickstarter, take a look at everything, see how great everything looks. I've had my hands on the prototype. The prototype is spectacular. So the final game is going to be even 10 times better than that. I've played this game. It's great. So I'm not just having this show to say, oh, I know these guys, I want you to buy their game. No, I mean, this is really good. This deserves to get out there. I'm absolutely blown away by the amount of polish and play testing and fun that's involved with this game. But to get back to my original point, I want people to go to Kickstarter and sign up for hey, notify me when the Kickstarter launches. And then also after some people will listen to my podcast 2 months after it releases, so hopefully it'll still be in the window where you can go support the Kickstarter. But what I'm hearing now, most of the Kickstarters I'm familiar with or been involved with are comic book Kickstarters or tabletop role-playing game Kickstarters. Evidently, there's a different dynamic for board game Kickstarters, and it's all based on how many people signed up and said, notify me when this thing launches. So I want to help Triceratops Games. I want to help this game. I want to help these guys. So go sign up, tell your friends, whatever. I really think this game deserves to get out there. All right, but I got to jump over. We got another guest hanging in the wings, and that is Brandon Beam, who is our the third leg, the third horn, if you will, of Triceratops Games. So Brandon, welcome to Shane Plays.
Hey, Shane, thanks for having us on.
Yeah, man, so glad to have you on. You're also a fellow geek. I've had our mutual friend Jeremy Morphus on before to talk about his books, which you edit
Yes.
or have. Yeah, but you've never been on, so glad to have you on. Now, we were talking about Magic the Gathering earlier. And one of the things that's so good about Magic the Gathering and captured people's imaginations back in the day was the flavor text. So now I know you do more than just the flavor text on these cards, but your flavor text is really good, and it's funny and good. So I got to compliment you on the flavor text. So am I right in understanding that you did all or most of the flavor text on the cards?
Yeah, that's one of the major things that I started out with at the beginning. I do words, and so helped name the cards. We would have brainstorming sessions, and I was generally helping drive the naming. And then once we had named the cards, I would take it back and try to make the flavor text be both relevant and, when possible, humorous. And I'm glad that landed some with you.
I know this is very good, and another very cool dynamic of Journey Adventure Quest or JAQ. I'll probably just say JAQ the rest of the show. JAQ is all of the cards mathematically and thematically, narratively connect seamlessly, and will build on each other. Every time you lay one card over on top of another card, it mathematically and narratively connects and becomes something more than it was before. And that's no small feat. Not only does it speak to the design expertise and the loving crafting nature of the design, but also the narrative, the flavor text and all that. It's just hitting on every cylinder. But now, so what other role are you playing with Triceratops Games? Now you're also a lawyer. So you're handling kind of the business side. What else are you? You wrote the rule book. Like what's all your involvement here?
Yeah, I would say anything where there's a lot of words I get involved in, and so that's like you mentioned. I also wrote most of the rule book, and I'm a lawyer. Yeah, I do a lot of the vendor and partner management. I kind of think of myself as the person that's helping to take the wonderful ideas that Jesse and Tommy have had and trying to make that into reality. So I work with the manufacturers and shipping and fulfillment people and distribution and do general research and just sort of to turn it into something that we can actually put in the hands of people.
Right. So, and I think a lot of people don't understand that. One of the things, a prominent theme, I've been doing this show as live radio and as a podcast since 2015, May of 2015. So I'm end of May 20. So I'm almost 7 years into this. Love doing it. But an overwhelming theme that has emerged as I talked with creators who have done something and gone on to have success is there is a business side to this stuff. There's a marketing side, there's a business side, and I don't think people understand enough how important it is. Like you're talking about, getting hooked up with our distributors or the people doing this or the people doing that. That's incredibly important. So how hard has that been? Do you think that COVID made that easier or harder with supply chain and everybody suddenly wanting to, chase their dreams because of COVID? Which, by the way, I have to say that I've said from the beginning, COVID is awful, terrible. I hate it. I'm sorry that it happened. However, since it did happen and forced people to slow down and stay home, it's allowed people time to chase dreams like this. So I think it's great that instead of just saying, well, we're just going to watch TV or play more games, we're going to do something with this time. But anyway, back to my original question, Brandon, do you think COVID and the pandemic made all that harder or easier?
I think it made it, well, it certainly cleared out the playing field quite a bit. There were major manufacturers of board games that would take no more projects on. Shipping went up by, like everything else in the world, but it went up like an order of magnitude. So if you follow Kickstarters, there were all sorts of people that had locked in prices they thought.
Right.
It really, really struggled. So I think it made it a lot harder. On the other hand, that sometimes made it easier on us in that there weren't that many options. So, we only wanted to have someone like in the top 3 on each of those things. And so we definitely have been able to be noticed by people that may not have been noticed. We're a small company, and so we were able to get in with some of the major, fulfillment place and items like that where maybe we wouldn't have been able to do that. And like you said, we didn't have anything else to do for a while, so we were able to focus on this between this and Netflix.
Right. Yeah. And so you, instead of just doing nothing but Netflix, you spent some time being creative. So, which is, I think is wonderful. I think that there's going to be stories coming out for years of cool stuff that happened because people were forced to, stay home, and I gotta put my energy somewhere. But again, I don't want that to ever say that I think that COVID was a good thing, because it was terrible, awful, horrible. So Tommy, I never really, and I'm about to circle back to Jesse with a question, but Tommy, I didn't really give you a chance to explain what your role has been with the game. Once you decided to become like, hey, let's actually get this game out there. So what has been your role? I know you've play tested it like crazy. This game has probably been play tested a lot more than other stuff that you'll find on the market. But what else? What has been your role here, Tommy, with this game?
I would say, I think we all kind of shared Jesse's vision and kind of made tweaks here and there on different things. I've some of the big things I've done is I've created an application that would run the board game through an AI that would play the game, so we could play the game through a 1 player, 2 player, 3 player, 4 player, hundreds of, thousands of times, so we can kind of tweak cards. I was able to take all the cards and all the stats of the cards because I guess a profession. I'm a data architect, so I know data.
Right.
I was able to take all the cards and the stats of the cards, load those up into this data visualization tool called Power BI, and kind of visually see the stats of the cards. And we were able to tweak some cards, saying, "Oh, in the 2 player version, there's not enough attack," and things like that. So we were able to switch some sets and switch some cards. I would say, I was able to. And of course, I did this, the tabletop simulator technical side of a little bit of coding to make this app. But yeah, I would say just basically played it a lot to help tweak the design and did some little things like that.
All right. So, all right, I'm gonna circle it back to Jesse. So, Jesse, why, if I understand right, Triceratops Games was your choice, was your name. Why Triceratops? I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just curious. I mean, I love Triceratops. They're great people, but why that for the name?
That's a good question. I'd say when I was a kid, it's kind of like little boys pick their identity based on dinosaurs or construction vehicles or just like those different things that little kids like cars. They're just naturally attracted to something. Dinosaurs was definitely mine. Like outside of I'm just saying like that first initial thing because obviously Ninja Turtles was my jam, but like just that Triceratops, the 3 horn, was the good guy to the bad guy of the T-Rex. He just felt like that opposing force of a good guy. And so this kind of is interesting. One of my favorite things to do when I was little was pile up all my dinosaurs. And I would convince my mom or my friends or whoever's over, hey, guys, we're going to take turns picking. So we're going to take turns drafting out of this pile of dinosaurs. And I'm going to pick one, then you're going to pick one. And we just pick our favorites and go back and forth. And then we'll play with those each separately. But I would quickly convince them to pile them all back up and let's pick again. Because picking was my favorite part.
That was so like you said, you love to draft.
Yeah. And so it's like that was, even when I was a little kid, and Triceratops was always my first pick. Because he was the good guy to the bad guy. And it's just really cool, and it's just symbolic to me of like that nostalgia of kid, and I just think people are attracted. Like, wait, dinosaur, something's going on. Like, it's just There's something about it that there's an attraction to, and so I just kind of wanted to stand with some of that. But I think it has some really cool meanings of like, there's 3 of us, there's 3 horns. We stand for fun strategy together. Those are our 3 horns. And I just think that there's some cool symbolics.
Let me back that up. So the pillars, the horns, if you will, of Triceratops Games are fun, strategy, and together.
Yep.
Okay.
And
that's
so
cool.
I want our games to be fun. I want them to feel strategic, to have some of that element. And I want it to be a social thing. I want us to be able to have a game that we're kind of talking about and playing. And I'm even working on a 1-player mode of this game. And it's like, well, that doesn't feel very together. But I want it to be. You want to talk to people about it after you play, like other people who are playing the 1-player. I'm in a Facebook group. That's a huge community of 1-player board games.
That is an innovation that I love a lot. I mean, they've always probably been out there a little bit. But in the past, I don't know, 10 years or so, I've seen a lot more 1-player. And really what it is just the rules have built-in AI.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's just applied to a board game or a card game. And I think that's really cool. Because there's nothing worse than, well, I'm sure there's things worse, but it's a bummer. Like, this is a really cool game and I really want to play it, but nobody's around right now. So if you have a 1-player version, that's so great.
Yeah, it's not just solitaire. Growing up, my grandma played a lot of solitaire, and it's like it's a 1-player game, but this is cool interaction, great, amazing art. Just that experience of those things we grew up on. And I get to sit here and play and have a good time and try to beat an AI opponent or whatever. So, yep.
All right. Well, one thing I want to do since we're here, I mean, obviously there's love for board games in this group. I wanted to give you guys all a chance. Do you want to give a shout out to a favorite or maybe a recent game that surprised you as being really good? If you want, and then we're going to jump in and play a little bit of JAQ, but I'll go first. And a game that really impressed me within the past couple of years, maybe I don't even know when it came out. But I was actually interviewing some people. They did you have the comic book collector's guides, like the Overstreet comic book price guide. Well, they had put out a book on board games and RPGs and stuff like that. It's sort of a price guide because those are getting more collectible. And they recommended Thanos Rising, the Avengers Infinity War board game to me. And I went out and bought it. And that game is so much better than it rises way above the IP, right? They didn't just phone it in. They didn't say, hey, we're going to put Thanos on this. And, but it's got dice mechanics and it's got sort of drafting, but I think you purchase extra heroes and stuff like that. And it's got kind of a random element, like it has this big Thanos kind of thing. And whichever way he turns, there's dire consequences. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Thanos Rising. Over the past few years, that's probably been one of the nicer surprises that I found in board games. So, Jesse, I'm just going to throw it to you and we'll go through it. Do you have a board game you want to give a shout out to?
I'd say my favorite game is a game called Mystic Vale. And it's the mechanic. Man, I sit down to it at Gen Con. This is probably about 4 or 5 years ago. I sit down to it at Gen Con and I started playing it. And I got up from playing it and went and bought it and came back and sat back down to continue the demo. Because initially I was like, this is incredible. So it's a deck building game, basically, where you're buying cards and you're putting in, but you already have 20 cards in your deck and they're sleeved up. And the cards that you buy are clear and you are putting them on top of other cards in your deck, making them better. So you slide them down into the sleeve and they're clear so you can see through it. So you can put 3 layers into one sleeve of a card to make a super card for your deck. And you're just kind of buying, and like there's like layer 1, 2, and 3, and they can only go in a certain order. So you have to buy them in that order, and it's just fun to craft it. And man, it was just so cool. It was this cool mechanic of these clear cards. Like I never would have thought that it had even been feasible to be like, hey, all right, we're going to include sleeves with our board game. Everything's going to be sleeved up, and then we're going to make clear like plastic cards that are going to slide down in this thing. And I was just like, man, this is incredible. And it's just such a cool mechanic. And I love that game. I think they just did something I would have thought of, and I'm so glad someone did, and I just think it's really cool.
Yeah, really cool. All right, and that's called Mystic Vale. I'll put this stuff in the show notes. So Jesse's recommended game is Mystic Vale. Yeah, I have not heard of it. That sounds neat though.
Yeah, it's AEG. Like it's a big time company made it and stuff too. Even so,
and of course we could throw stuff out there like Settlers of Catan, which is like the Monopoly of the new generation. It's just I love that. That's really opened up. The Settlers of Catan came along, and that opened people up to more than just like Parker's Brothers kind of games in America, right? There's that kind of opened up the floodgates in a lot of ways. And I still love a good game of Settlers of Catan. But Tommy, what was that game you were telling me? I was over there one time, and you guys were playing like a farming game or something, and you said that was the game that got you into board games. Like, do you remember what that was?
It's cleverly named the farming game.
And you said that was the one. That was the one that got you guys into board game fanatics, right?
I would say that's actually what got us to be kind of fun with board game, but that's still hitting the genre of like the kind of Monopoly. I would say I am one of the settlers people where that was my gateway, right? So where you're sitting playing this game going, wait a minute, board games are fun. I mean, to no end. And that's really what got me into it.
Yeah, a lot you guys probably know, but a lot of people might not realize, in fact, if they're just now starting to play and everything, or, getting in their teens or something, Settlers of Catan was a game changer, no pun intended. It really opened people up. It really opened people up to game night didn't have to be a Parker Brothers game, or Milton Bradley or Scrabble, or there's nothing wrong with those games, but it opened people up to a whole new possibilities of board games, imports from Europe and that kind of thing, which is of course now influenced American board game design. So what game would you recommend, like, has been a pleasant surprise, or like one of your favorite board games? I know you were pretty crazy about Splendor for a while.
I have so many board games I like. I mean, I'm one of those people who can almost like anything that you sit down in front of me and play. But it all depends who I'm playing with. But like if I'm playing I got the sit down strategy game that I'm enjoying right now a lot is Ankh.
Ankh.
Yes, Egyptian of
Yep.
the Gods, Gods of Egypt. I'm telling you, I absolutely love this game. I think that it has like, I mean, the mechanics of the game is very simple, which I like, with the point where you're just doing two things per your turn, but those two things are very. I mean, there's a lots of decisions goes in between what two things you do, and one of my favorite mechanics is area control games where you have a lot of people and you're trying to control certain areas, and this without luck. That's my thing. There's a lot of area control games which there's a lot of luck into there, but Ankh kind of hits that where there's less little luck in there, but it also has one of my favorite mechanics is when you have the same cards as I have the same cards, and we're going to play a card against each other, and if you play that card, I lose. But if I play this other card, and when you're kind of going back and forth, and it has a little bit of that in it, but I don't know. That's a fun game. I like Fantastic Factories, a kind of more lightweight game. That's kind of games I'm playing right now. And then, of course, I play a lot of Wingspan lately.
Two of the games that you introduced me to that have stuck with me over the past several years would be Small World. I love the mechanics of Small World. It just has really cool, the way that who you're playing changes. And then Pandemic, Pandemic, of course, has almost become like a board game staple.
Legendary games, that zombie game.
Zombicide. Yeah.
Zombicide. And then we went out there and we had to go kill that thing with the hammer.
Yeah, we had it won, but a mutual friend wanted to hot dog and blew it. And I never get stressed on games ever, but that stressed me out. I was like, ah.
That's one of my all-time favorite games. That was so good.
Well, that game is designed to stress you out because the tempo keeps increasing. Zombicide's a fun game. Another cool game that I want to throw a shout out to that I wish would have gotten more expansions is Star Trek Expeditions. I think that's a really fun game, and it's always plays a little bit different and has some cool mechanics in it. So, all right, Brandon, what about you? Do you have a game that you love dearly or that surprised you or that you just want to give a shout out to?
Which of my kids do I love the most?
Yeah.
Of course we can't say JAQ, even though I do think it's the only game that I've thought of for a while. Well, I'd like to say that's not really true, but it is a gateway game, kind of like Settlers. Jesse mentioned Seven Wonders earlier, so there's the Seven Wonders Diablo Ticket to Ride combo that was really, if you think of those, and Diablo 3, not the board game, but the electronic game. That's what led to this, and so Ticket to Ride's one of those Days of Wonder game like Small World. But the three games that I've been pulling out lately have been Libertalia, Wingspan, and Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep is fantastic. That won a lot of awards, and that's a very good game.
I love the worker placement area there. You can gain quests, and so I have two daughters. One that makes us look like noobs in games. She runs a local LARP. She works at a game store. But my other daughter loves Lords of Waterdeep and completely trashes me every time we play it, and I love that. But one thing I really like about it has a really cool app that you can get, and we got during the pandemic, and so I actually would love to follow in their footsteps. And now that Tommy has the AI version of JAQ out there, we're gonna make our own app eventually. But Lords of Waterdeep is, we play it. It's my second most played game right now.
Yeah, it's a great game. It uses Dungeons and Dragons IP, but again, and I'm not saying that a Dungeons and Dragons board game would be bad necessarily, but it rises above. They didn't call it in. They didn't phone it in. They didn't say, oh, it's a D&D IP, it'll sell. I mean, they really made a really spectacular game. Like I said, I had Rodney Thompson, who was one of the designers of that on, and he was shocked, because it was the first board game he'd ever worked on. Before that, he just worked on the Dungeons and Dragons tabletop role-playing game side with Wizards of the Coast. So even he was surprised, how well it came out and how well it did. So you and Tommy both mentioned Wingspan. I'm not familiar with Wingspan. So what's that about?
Okay. You've seen the box, I'm sure, and didn't know what you were looking at. It has this beautiful bird on the front of the box, and that's it. It's a beautifully designed piece of art that tells you exactly what you're getting. What you do in Wingspan is you try to get birds come to your ecosystems that you're creating, and so it's a deck builder type resource gathering, and it is just absolutely beautiful. And it's a Stonemaier game. And I mean, you look at each card, and it is truly a work of art. It also has the competitive and non-competitive version in it, so you can, if you like the people like to attack each other, you can play it that way, or you can play where the interactions are positive. It's just a really fun, beautiful game. We even bought some extra eggs that are look like pieces of candy, and a whole bunch of extra pieces to it. It's a lot of fun.
That does sound fun. So, all right. So I want to make sure.
Hey, real quick. Let me tell you something about that Wingspan thing. So Tommy, every couple of weeks, this was like a few years ago. We've been going to church a long time together, but he had come up to me and had asked, "Hey man, what game are you playing? What game's going on right now?" Because he knew I was a big board gamer. So I'm like, oh man, I'm kind of messing around with this or this. And I remember when I started playing Wingspan, I was like, oh man, I'm on Wingspan right now, man. I love it. And he's like, wait, what's that game? And I was kind of like, oh man, you get birds and you put them out and you're just trying to get eggs and get points. And it's just real fun. It's like a cards connect to one another, and you're just kind of crafting the perfect board to score the best points each time. And Tom was like, okay. So then he comes up to me, a couple weeks later, hey man, what game you on right now? I was like, man, I'm still playing Wingspan, man. I love it. I was like, I'm on that, and I could just see the look in Tommy's face, like, I'm not playing this bird game, bro.
It's not happening.
He was not interested the first time I told him, or the second time. And now when you talk about great games, Tommy will bring up Wingspan every time. I was like, hey, you just thought I was trying to lead you astray. I know it's a weird, and that's what was so fun about it, honestly, is that the Wingspan was it's about birds. And you're like, well, that's not really what I would expect in a board game theme, but there it was.
You got to have the mechanics is what does it, right? I mean, the components add engagement and flavor, right? But you got to have that underlying gameplay, So
yeah, absolutely.
All right. So I want to make sure I get these right. So I recommended Thanos Rising. You recommended Mystic Vale. I'm just going to throw Wingspan in there. That's from Brandon and Tommy. Tommy, what was your main recommend again? I forgot to make a note of it. I'm sorry.
Strategy game would be Ankh right now.
Ankh. Okay. And what was yours again, Brandon?
Lords of Waterdeep.
Lords of Waterdeep. Okay. There we go. And there was one, I'm not necessarily recommending this as a shout out game, but it was probably one of the most pleasant experiences I've had playing a board game. I played it at Tommy's house. And it was so pleasant to play. Even when you lost, you didn't care. It simulated, I guess in Japan they would go on these long walks, like days on end. And they would stop, and maybe somewhere they would do like pottery, and then somewhere else they would eat good food, and it simulated that. Do you remember which game I'm talking about, Tommy?
Tokaido.
What's it called?
Tokaido.
That was one of the most pleasant games I've ever played. Like, I literally didn't care if I won or lost.
Tokaido. That's what.
That's it. Yeah, that was. I didn't care if I won or lost. It was just so pleasant to play. It's like, oh, I'm going to stop here and do this. Oh, I'm going to do calligraphy. Oh, I'm going to do this. Oh, I'm going to do that. And so that was a really cool game. That's been one of the more unusual games that I've played. So, and then for 2-player games, because I wish there were more 2-player games out there for couples, but of course I got to give a shout out to is it Lost Cities, and then is it Jaipur? I think JAI. My wife and I play that a lot. So anyway, all right, moving on.
I do want to say,
yeah,
also a 2-player game. I am stoking JAQ for this for 2-player game, but I'm always in the market for a 2-player game. But I would say JAQ plays so good as a 2-player to the point where, like, I mean, I like a lot of games, and a lot. I even though I play this game all the time, I still roll this one out. Me and my wife will just play this one because it's just fun.
That's one thing I haven't gotten to play it in 2-player mode yet, but I'm looking forward to it. And I'm absolutely looking forward to checking out the 1-player mode too. But yeah, a good, strong 2-player game. And let's go ahead and I'll take your word for it because you've play tested this game like nobody's business. I'll take your word for it. So let's throw JAQ in there too. Very strong 2-player game.
Yeah, Shane, I'm a backup Tommy, and I try to I know this is my baby, but it's 2-player.
Yeah,
it was on the back burner a little bit. Me and Tommy was kind of always working. I had a few ideas, and man, I came to Tommy with a couple of them, and man, it feels really good. I play a lot of 2-player with my wife. Seven Wonders Duel and things like that. And I think this one really just scratches an itch where I'm enjoying the game the whole time. I don't ever feel like I'm just getting pummeled or losing bad. And just kind of that's how the game was designed anyways. But at the end, you're just like, it's usually a pretty tight race, and it's just a lot of fun. So I'm definitely on team when people ask me my favorite 2-player, and I try to be unbiased about it, but this is my favorite 2-player game.
No, I'm all about it. I mean, the more good 2-player games we can get, the better. Because really, I feel like that when my wife and I, like when I'm looking for a game just to play with her, the selection isn't great. So I'm looking forward to adding another one to that because I'll definitely be back in your Kickstarter. But I want to there was something else. Brandon mentioned another game that I definitely want to give a shout out to. I think that this is a game that should be a staple at every family's house or every person's house. And that's Ticket to Ride. Such a great game. Everybody enjoys playing Ticket to Ride. So I would put it not quite up there with Settlers of Catan, but close. I think, you should have that in your game closet without a doubt. So I've got the 10th anniversary edition up there that has all the little tins with the special little train cars and all that. My son likes to be the circus one because the giraffes stick out of the top of the cars or something like that. So anyway, all right. So let's do this. I'm looking, obviously the audience listeners can't see it at home. If they'll go to Kickstarter.com and look for Journey Adventure Quest, or if they'll go to ShanePlays.com and look at the show notes and go to Kickstarter, I think go to Triceratops Games. I think there's also a listing for Journey Adventure Quest on Board Game Geek. So go there and look, and you'll get an idea of the components that we're using here. But let's go through, I guess, one iteration or one round of Journey Adventure Quest up to the first time we fight the monster. Okay, let's do that, and that'll kind of give the listeners an idea of what we're doing and kind of the flow of the game. Does that sound good?
Sounds great to me.
All right, let's do it. So each of us have a little board. We all have our own player board in front of us. And that player board has 3 sections on it: dawn, noon, and dusk. So if I remember right, you play in phases of 2 days. And that means that you go through dawn, noon, and dusk, and then dawn, noon, and dusk, and then you fight the monster. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay. And among that will also be, we'll be drafting cards. We'll draw cards and pass them to the person, I believe, to our left. And then there's a monster that has been set out on the table, and it's a menacing hatchling. So it's a baby dragon, and his loot is gold pauldrons. So the thing that's important to keep in mind, JAQ keeps building on itself. So your equipment keeps building on itself and getting stronger or potentially weaker, depending on how you draft. And the monster will keep getting stronger. And the object is ultimately to have the most victory points. But one of the main objectives you want to try to do is to look at the monster and say, can I beat the monster? So this menacing hatchling has a hit points of 1. He has an intelligence of 1, and he does 3 damage when he attacks you. So we're all going to try to be building equipment on this first round so that we can defeat him if possible. Now, if you get defeated by the monster, you're not out of the game. You just don't get as much victory points or as much loot or whatever. So, all right. So now that I've said all that, Jesse, why don't you walk us through what we're doing here?
So we are looking at our hand right now. So what we just did initially, we had 5 adventure cards in our hand that we were supposed to pick 3 of those and discard the other 2. This is very similar to Ticket to Ride and kind of what is going to be your missions throughout the game. Unlike Ticket to Ride, you don't get more of these during the game. You kind of get these 3, and these are your personal missions. So this is kind of what puts us at odds with one another, kind of makes us take different paths. So I'm not doing the same thing that you are, Shane. I'm going to be doing something different because I over here, spoiler alert, need to get 3 chest plates to complete one of my adventures. So I'm going to be trying to get those without telling you guys. You guys don't know because those are secrets. So we had to do that. And now we have a hand full of 7 cards. I'm going to pick one of those cards. A chest plate is in here. I might consider that to help me go along with that adventure I need to complete. But I also got to consider I need to be able to make sure I get that 1 attack and 1 knowledge to defeat that monster. Because I do not want to miss out on those couple of points he's going to give me along with the couple of gold. So we want to try to take advantage of all the points we can in the game. So we are selecting just 1 card right now.
Now I'm going to pick one. What happens is the cards get handed around, and you pick one at a time, and then they go to the next person. And so you never you get a different set of cards each time to draft from.
Yeah, that sort of closed drafting format where you switch hands, very similar to Seven Wonders.
All right. Okay, I'm done picking. Tommy, if you want to. All right. So am I picking another one now for noon?
Yep, and so we'll pick a second for our noon. And this will be kind of halfway point of these 3 cards, and then we'll flip all these 3 cards over. There. So like currently in my hand right now, there's a lot of belts. So it's kind of like I'm maybe forced to pick one of these belts. There's also some rainbow cards. Rainbow cards can count towards any guild. That's a cool card element that you get to play with 4 players because it is difficult to get all of your colors sometimes. So that's kind of fun to have in here.
And let's talk a little bit too about in the middle of the table. There are 3 cards that we can all play off of, which is like we have individual quests, or what is, I want to make sure I'm using the right terminology.
Yeah, so the things we have personally are the adventures, and these things in the center that we're all working towards are the quests. And the equipment cards and spells that we have in our hand right now are the journey cards. So that's where you have your journeys, your adventures, and your quests.
Right. The journey is the day, noon, dusk cycle that you go through twice. You get 1 card for each of those. And then, like, for example, in the middle, people can't see it now, but there's 3 cards. One of them says Weaponus Maximus. And if you have 2 weapons, by the end, you get 3 victory points. If you have 3 weapons, you get 5 victory points. If you have 4 weapons, you get 7 victory points. Another one would be based on belts. I think that that's what Jesse was touching on earlier. And then there's the red guild cards. If you get anywhere from 2 to 4 red guild cards by the end of the game, then you get victory points. So, all right, I'm holding up the game. I need to pick a card here. Pick a card, any card. I need to get my shields up. Another thing that people can keep in mind, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 spots in your area that you can play cards that are almost like a paper doll from like a role-playing game, computer game. I've got primary weapon, offhand weapon, armor, belt, helmet, and then you can also cast spells. So as we're drafting these cards, we're doing it so that we can play them on those areas and build our character up, as you will, to get ready to fight the monster. Okay.
Yeah, and I would say that's where the Diablo element kind of comes from. Is if you play Diablo, you just have equipment slots. You put your helmet on, you put your chest plate on. That's where like the offhand idea, kind of like not necessarily a weapon always. Some characters use two weapons, but oftentimes it's like a book or an orb or, some magical item. So that's kind of what we try to do with a lot of our offhand items is like it's a special item to that set. So that's a lot of fun. And so the stacking up of those cards equal kind of like when you're embedding those with runes and stuff from those games. But yep.
Right. All right. So I've still got 4 cards in my hand, but I've drafted my morning, noon, and dusk. So do I need to pass these on? Is there a button?
We can flip them all over right now, and then we'll hit the pass button, and then we'll pick from those again.
So on the board in front of us, we have morning, noon, and dusk. So we're all going to flip our morning card.
Yeah, we're flipping our dawn card right now, and then you pay for it.
Right. Yeah. So let's see what mine is. Mine cost 2 coins, and evidently we all start with 3 coins.
Yep.
So I'm going to pay. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like something else to be looking at when we're looking at our hands. Is like each card has a cost up in the top right corner, and you start the game with 3 gold, and it's like, do I pay? You have to pay for each card you get. Some cards do luckily give you gold, and also defeating the monster gives you gold, and you can sell any card at any time for 2 gold in case you get in a bind. And the other form of payment is blood, which is kind of like maybe a learning curve of the weapon, or the weapon hurts you to use it. And you have to take some blood, and blood is negative victory at the end of the game, but you can heal that off by using heal items. So it's a risk reward. Like what if I take a lot of blood on, will I be able to heal it all off? So you just want to checks and balances there.
Right. So I played a belt for my dawn phase of the first day, and I get 1 sword, 1 book, and 1 shield, which basically means 1 attack value, 1 intelligence value, and 1 defense value. Because with these monsters, not only do you have to be stronger than them, you have to be able to outsmart them.
Yep.
Right. So noon.
Let's all flip over noon. All right, and this one, my noon card gives me gold. So I played Without a Trace, which is a spell. And it's going to give me...
So you would get 3 golds, and everybody else gets 1 gold.
Yep.
Thank you, Shane.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Shane.
You're so welcome. I'm a gracious podcast host. All right. So one dynamic of this game that I've heard referred to before is the spell trap, or spells are very powerful, but they can also, if you play too many, if you get a little bit too addicted to spells, it can work against you mechanics wise, because you also need to be filling out the rest of your helmet, offhand weapon, main weapon, and armor. And any of those at the end of the game that you don't like, if I get to the end of the game and I don't have anything in my offhand weapon, that counts negative victory points.
Yeah. The spell trap kind of came up with the idea of like spells. When you use spells, it's usually pretty easy to defeat the monsters because they give you so much just of the tokens. But the tokens have to go away at the end of the round. So it's kind of like you throw your spell at the monster, you lose all the spell that you had built up. But you have a good pile of spells, so it's really easy to, I should just cast another spell because it allows me to defeat the monster really easy. But the downfall of spells is that they don't have victory points attached to the card themselves. So if you're not getting victory when you play those cards, unlike when you're getting equipment, which are worth points at the end of the game. So it's kind of I think spells really supplement helping defeat the monster. So you do want to have a decent base of those. But when somebody goes all in because they're like, oh, I'm thrashing the monster and I love this so much. Like, they're having a great game and I'm really glad they're enjoying it. But at the end, they're like, how do I only have 36 points?
Right.
And that's because they fell into that enticement. And that's almost like the development cards in Settlers of Catan. you buy a lot of development cards, but there's only 6 victory hidden within that deck. And so if you're not getting those and but you are getting that longest road and that largest army and those special cards that do stuff, and you feel like you're doing really cool, but sometimes it's a harder path to victory if you were only going development cards. So you just kind of like, well, I don't know if that's the best strategy, man. It's usually try to warn against that a little bit. But
Right.
I have seen people go spell heavy and win the game. So I'm not saying it's not possible, but I do try to throw up a warning sign for that.
Gotcha. All right. And yeah, it's another important thing to mention. So I'm getting, right now I have 1 attack value, 1 intelligence value, and 1 shield value. At the beginning of the next day, when we go into our next dawn, noon, and dusk cycle, those go away, right? Or is it after we fight the monster?
After you fight the monster.
After we fight the monster, that stuff all goes away, and I got to start building up all over again. So that's, yeah. So, okay. All right, let's do dusk. Everybody's flipping their dusk card. My dusk card is a piece of armor. It's rainbow, which means there's certain things you can do that it's like, what color is your card? Or do you have 3 or 4 of this color? Well, this one counts for any color. It's a tunic of royalty. It gives me 1 extra shield, and it costs me 3 gold. 1, 2, 3.
And everybody gets an extra coin because turnabout's fair play, and I played the same one. And since I played a second spell, I also get a part of what I got from the first spell. So those stack too.
Right. And now I have, with the cards I've played so far, I have 1 attack, 1 intelligence token, and 3 shield, which, unless something else happens, I'm good with the monster. I will be able to defeat the monster. So, but stuff could happen on this next round. So we have, for the journeys happen in 2-day cycles. So we still have another day in this journey before we fight the monster. And I've got some cards, so I'm going to pick what do I want here? Oh, that's nice. That's nice. I need to look at, this is where I need to look at my adventures to see what cards I need to play to get extra victory points. These are my personal cards. For example, I'll just throw one out there for the benefit of the listeners. I have a personal adventure I'm working on that only I'm working on it. None of the other players are. It's called Specialize in Everything. If I get 3 offhand weapons and 3 belts by the end of the game, not the end of the first day or the first journey, which is 2 days, but the game is, if I remember right, is 3 journeys. So you'll go through 3 cycles of 2 days. And each day is a dawn, noon, and dusk phase. But by the end of the game, if I have 3 offhand weapons and 3 belts, I'll get 7 victory points. So that's something you've also got to pay attention to. So in this case, to meet that, I would probably want to play. Well, I don't have enough. Yeah, here's the other thing. So let's say I want to play a card, and I don't have the coin to pay for it. So let's say I have a card. I do, as a matter of fact, I have a card that costs 3 coins to play. What do I do if I don't have enough coins and that card is there waiting on me to play?
You can sell a card at any point. You just have to draft. So like if it's in your hand right now, you unfortunately wouldn't be able to get that if you didn't have the money, but you could plan ahead. This being the first pick of this round, it's really hard to you can't just get that card, but you could sell a card from that hand. So in the next hand, you can pick something and you can sell a card for 2 coins. When we go through the process of flipping them, you just sell it for 2 coins.
All right. Well, I'm going to play this because I need to get belts if I was working on my adventures. So, okay. Let me flip that. Nice.
And I'd say that's when I call it a resource management game, it's not like Settlers of Catan where you're resource managing in that way, But there are 3 primary resources to kill monsters, but there's also these other 3 primary resources, well, 2 of blood and coin and heal to kind of, because you're trying to heal at the appropriate time, but you're also trying to manage your coins well, because if I can afford the cards that I need the most at the time I need them, well, that's going to be a win for me.
And now I've got 2 cards I need to choose from to play for my dusk. I've already put down a card for dawn and noon, which we will reveal and then play into our spaces, building up our character. But I'm in a situation where neither card is especially great. So it's kind of I've got to choose the lesser of 2 bummers. So, all right.
All the cards are great.
Yeah. Well, all the cards are great under the right circumstance. All the cards are designed amazingly great. This card, that choice wasn't great for me.
Over Dawn.
What's that?
We're going to flip over Dawn.
Yeah, I'm ready. I'm going to flip over Dawn. And what I did for Dawn is I kind of hurt myself. I did a dragon scaled belt because I need to be working on belts. It cost me 1 blood. So I've taken a hit point, if you will, or a negative victory point. And I'm going to play my belt. And now I have a phantom dragon scaled belt because each card keeps building on each other. And I actually hurt myself because I had 1 attack point and the dragon scaled belt has a negative attack point on it. So now I'm at 0 attack points and I got to have at least 1 attack to defeat the monster. So the question is, I was gambling that one of my next 2 cards would give me an attack point back that I choose. So we'll have to wait and see, did it or not? The suspense is killing me. All right. We ready for noon?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. So what I played is a journey rune, which is simply, it doesn't go into my character. It just gives me 3 victory points. And those come up. This is a loot card, right?
That's called a consumable card. So that's how, like, our health potions or victory, there's just a few things that you kind of consume and just take the items from it.
All right. Where's our discard at?
I'll grab a copy over
Far
here.
left.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So that gave me 3 victory points, but it did not give me an attack point. I really need an attack point so that I can defeat this monster that's waiting for us. All
Everybody
right.
can flip over Dusk.
We ready for dusk? All right.
Yeah.
So we're at dusk of the second day, which means the first journey is done, and we're about to fight the monster. So I get 4 health back because I played Decay, which is a spell. And that gives me... okay, so I played Decay as a spell. Remember I said that I was like, I didn't quite know what to get out of that final choice to choose from. And it gives me 4 blood back or 4 health back, which puts me back at 0 blood loss. And everybody else gets healed 1 as well. If you have a blood loss, you can heal that up. And it gave me another intellect, it's a little book icon. So now I'm at 0 attack, 2 smarts, and 4 shield, which means, I guess, Tommy, explain, or whoever wants to explain what attacking the monster means. We're now ready to fight the monster.
So in order to beat the monster, we compete with the monster individually, but we're all fighting the same monster.
That's a good point. We don't gang up against the monster. We all fight the monster based on our own merits of what we've played.
And what you're doing is you're looking at your culmination of all the cards you have down and the temporary tokens that you gained during that 2-day period in order to determine whether you beat the monster or not. And this monster has, of course, 1 health, 1 knowledge. So in order to beat the monster, you have to have at least 1 attack and 1 knowledge. And Shane, if you look at your board, you have 0 attack.
Right. And 3 knowledge.
And 3 knowledge. So you don't beat the monster. So that doesn't hurt you. It just does not get you. you do not get the 3 victory points and 2 gold. So whoever beats the monster gets the 3 victory points and 3 gold. So Brandon beats it, and Jesse beats it, and I beat it. So we all get that. Then there's this little loot card here that we're competing for.
And how does it? What is the mechanic for determining who gets the loot card from the monster?
In the middle of the card, you can see it has a little symbol on it.
Yep.
That's the symbol that you're fighting for, that you're competing for. Whoever has the most attack when we fight this monster, you don't have to defeat the monster, but whoever has the most attack gets this little loot. So Brandon has 3 attack, Jesse has 5 attack. No, Brandon has 5 attack, Jesse has 3 attack, and I have 2 attack. So Brandon would get that, and he gets to place that on his, like, another piece of armor, and gets the stats of that card.
Right. So he won golden pauldrons, if I remember right, from the monster, and he gets to play that on his armor stack. So he got the loot from. So everybody who beats the monster gets 2 coins and 3 victory points. I didn't, because like I said, I played a belt that subtracted 1 attack. So that took me to attack at 0. I was like, well, I've still got noon and dusk to choose cards, so I'll probably get another attack. Well, I didn't, so I gambled wrong.
One thing you could have done, I mean, I think you probably made the better play just having that card if you feel like you needed that card for adventures and stuff. But you could have sold that card after you found out what the other 2 were going to be, so you wouldn't have had to cover it up.
See, there's a good, right.
So you could have, I'm going to take this risk, and if it doesn't pay off, I'm just going to sell it and get 2 gold for it.
Right.
But again, they may have matched your adventures. It may just have good stats. Lots of things.
Well,
to count for.
And again, I'm also hopefully maybe that if we played 2 more journeys, which we're not, we just went through 1 journey cycle of 2 days. So 2 phases of dawn, noon, and dusk, and then fighting a monster. I was hoping to get more belts so that I could get that 7 victory points out of my personal adventure that I'm working on called Specialize and Everything. I need 3 offhand weapons and 3 belts to get those. So as the game would go on, there would be 2 more phases, and the monster would upgrade. So the monster would upgrade, and they pulled out an ominous unicorn. So he went from a menacing hatchling to now he's a menacing, ominous unicorn. And by adding the cards together, now he's an ancient swamp dragon. So by the end of the 3rd journey, they would have been fighting a menacing, ominous, ancient swamp dragon that would have been 9 attack, 7 intelligence, and would be dealing out 10 damage. And then some of the loot would have been ominous vapor poniard, and then an ancient skull of laurels. So that kind of gives you an idea. You do 3 journeys of 2 days each. Each day has a dawn, noon, and dusk. And so you're fighting the monsters and you're collecting victory points and all that as you go along. Some of the cards you play, like some of the armor that I played, or some of the whatever that people played. Well, the sword I play has victory points on it, and you add all that up. And then remember that you have your individual adventures that you're working on. If I had completed all of my adventures cards, I have 3 cards, that would have been worth 12. That would have been worth 17 victory points total. And then, as somebody said earlier, a good comparison is when you're playing Ticket to Ride, like it says, it wants you to build a railway from, this city to that city. And if you do that by the end of the game, you get extra victory points. And then we also have these victory options that we all share that are played out in the middle based on how many weapons we got or belts or whatever. And that's all randomized. And then you go through 3 journeys fighting monsters and collecting points, and then you add up all the victory points. So is there anything else you want to add to that? Any of y'all, like to kind of explain the different dynamics or how to win the game?
I believe that's pretty much it. I mean, those are, again, there's just multiple paths. I'd say the winner of the game is who's going to do a couple of paths really well and do the other ones good. But you could fail in a path and still win the game, especially if other people are failing, trying to, get a bunch of points in their adventures and they're not getting them. There's always a chance that other people aren't being very successful either. That's one of the fun parts about the game. You hear the groans, you hear the moans of, oh man, if I'd have just had one more red, or just if this would have made such a difference, and I would have completed these 2 adventures and I would have got more points on my quest and like those kind of things. So again, I think usually the winner is somebody who does 2 of them incredibly well and the other one's pretty good. So you got to be a jack of all trades in this game, just to kind of to score the really, really good score that you need.
Yeah. And I also one thing that doing it this way doesn't really get to demonstrate to the listeners is how amazingly interconnected all the cards are numerically and narratively. And the game, as you go through each journey, your first journey, second journey, third journey, the game keeps building on itself and the stakes keep getting higher. So it's like a good meal. The more you eat it, the more the seasoning, it gets better the more you eat it. So if that's a very strange analogy, but hopefully it'll work. But anyway, yeah, so that's kind of an introduction to Journey Adventure Quest. Again, I can't stress enough, I've seen the prototype. I've play tested it more than once. I've done it on Tabletop Simulator. I played it in person, read through the rules. This is a really polished game. It's ridiculously polished for a first effort. This is Triceratops Games' first game, so it's just ridiculously polished. And I want people really go to shaneplays.com, go to the show notes, and find the Kickstarter link for Journey Adventure Quest. JAQ, is it word JAQ, or just go to Kickstarter and type in Journey Adventure Quest and sign up. If the Kickstarter hasn't launched yet, if it's not June 8th yet, sign up to be notified. If it has launched and it's underway, please support it. This is a really good game. If you like card games, board games at all, I'd be really shocked if you didn't like this game. So, any final thoughts? I'll just go through it. Jesse, any final thoughts you want to add?
No, I don't think so. I really appreciate you doing this and just kind of supporting us. It's really cool to have somebody excited about the game that's connected to Tommy and stuff. I mean, it's been really cool of you. I really appreciate it.
I'm glad to have you. Jesse, why, if they've got to choose between this and another game, why are they going to buy JAQ?
I can do this. I think they will love the introductory level of the game. Like it doesn't require a high skill cap to get into the game, but those with a high skill cap will still love the game because it offers so much. The replayability, you'll never fight the same monster twice. There's 5 level 1 monsters, 5 level 2 monsters, 5 level 3, and they can land in any combination order. And you'll never see the same hand twice. You get a new hand every time. So the replayability is going to be so good. I promise that. And I think no matter what your skill level is, you can enjoy this game. So that's why I think it's going to be great for a family of new board gamers and old board gamers. They're going to be able to enjoy this game together, and I think it's going to have something to offer for everyone, and they're going to enjoy playing it the whole way through. They're not going to feel like they're getting miserably left behind or any of that stuff, because you've never really had that feeling until at the end you realize, oh, I kind of lost, but I really enjoyed the game the whole time. Or you come to the end, you're like, oh man, I got so many points, and you're going to feel really good. So I think that's what's going to separate us from other games.
All right, fair enough. Brandon, final thoughts, and what separates JAQ from, like, if they're choosing from that game or another one, why are they going to go for JAQ?
Yeah, I think that there are several things, but the gateway game that we talked about with Settlers earlier, I think this is a perfect gateway game. And so no matter who you invite over, they're going to have a good time. And like we talked about with Tokaido, it almost doesn't. Truly, at the end of the game, people were sitting there talking about, "Oh, look at this, level 5 sword that I got. That's got this crazy name. That was so much fun." And even if you got 30 points and someone else got 80 points, you still had a good time. And that's feedback we get. We've play tested this a whole bunch, and every time we get that feedback that it's fun, even if you don't have the most points, you still feel like you had a great time. The other final thought that I would have is we've been really blessed to have friends and family that are not just helpful but gifted. As Tommy has Emmeline that has done a good portion of the artwork, but Leslie's been helping Jesse for years, and that's Jesse's wife, and then my wife and Tommy's wife have really been helping out. So we've been very blessed to have gifted family members that can really take us to the next level. And so, and since we're fun strategy together, that together part, we've been able to stay together and enjoy it. So it's been a really wonderful, a really wonderful adventure.
Right. Yeah. No pun intended. All right. Well, very good. All right, Tommy, final thoughts and why should people buy JAQ?
Well, I mean, of course, looking at the end, I get to say the same things that everybody else has kind of said. But one thing is when I played this game a long time ago, I'm always looking for a game that I would like, and that's kind of an interesting thing where you're like, I want to have a game that's challenging enough that I'm like, there is some strategy in there, and like what Jesse was trying to say is like the idea of I'm picking my card and I want to choose this card over this card, or I'm actually making some choices and I have an impact of the game. But also, yeah, I like those games where it's not enough. It's a threshold of that gateway where you're bringing in somebody who's never even played a board game. I actually did that a couple of days ago where I had some people from work come over and they're like, please pick an easy one for me. And I'm like, okay, well, we actually, played this game here. And at the end, they were giving high fives, and it's
cool.
never even played a board game ever. And
that's
so
cool.
It has that mark where somebody who's new to a game can enjoy it. And, a seasoned gamer also enjoys this kind of game.
Well, that's cool. All right. Well, yeah, that's, those are all great comments. I think those are all great sales points. Like I said, I think this is a very polished game, super polished. I do think that it deserves to get out there and, for people to know about it and add it to their gaming closets, as it were. Another thing I want to mention, I kind of touched on it before, but, Brandon was talking about, oh, it's just cool to look at look at this sword, or look at that, or look at that. It's again, the flavor text, the lore is neat, but the way things keep adding to each other, I had just building a belt. Let me get back to my area here on the game. I went from a phantom, what is that? Kasuzaki. It's like a Japanese style belt, Asian style belt, to a phantom dragon scaled belt. Everything keeps adding to itself. So, one of the things about Magic the Gathering that was different, you never just got like a goblin or a dragon. Everything was an adjective and then a noun. So it made it that much more interesting. And this takes that to another level, and it just keeps adding and adding and adding as your stacks keep growing. So, I think that's real fun. Again, I'm very impressed the way that all of the cards mathematically and narratively fit together. That's no small feat. So, all right, guys, I'm gonna wrap it up, folks. Remember again, that's Journey Adventure Quest, JAQ. Go to Kickstarter, search for Journey Adventure Quest. Go to shaneplays.com, look at the show notes, and now I have no choice. At the end of every Shane Plays Geek Talk, I do the bad joke of the week. Now, it's not really of the week anymore because I usually only put a couple of episodes out per month now, but it just has a good ring to it to say the bad joke of the week. So, guys, here comes the bad joke of the week. Brace yourselves. So I'll give an appropriate dramatic pause to let you brace yourself and ponder the horribleness that's about to be unleashed on you. All right, here we go. Why don't zombies eat comedians? Any of you are welcome to answer, if you dare.
I think I might know.
You think you might know? Lay it on me.
They taste funny.
Because they taste funny. That's right. Dun, dun, dun. All right. What kind of bread do zombies eat? Whole brain.
No, oh, nice.
Great.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
That was the patented horrible Shane Plays Geek Talk bad joke of the week. I had you all sign waivers, so as Brandon knows, because he's a lawyer, I'm immune to being sued on that one. So anyway, guys, thanks so much again. We've been talking with Jesse, Stacy, Tommy Noel, and Brandon Beam of Triceratops Games and their upcoming game, which is super cool. Journey Adventure Quest JAQ. Check it out. Everybody, we will catch you next time on Shane Plays Geek Talk. Thanks so much for listening to Shane Plays Geek Talk. I certainly hope you enjoyed this journey into the things we love. For your convenience, show notes with helpful links for each episode can always be found at shaneplays.com. You can catch the podcast in several places, including on the blog at shaneplays.com, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher, Podbean, Amazon Music, Verbal, YouTube, and more. If you like what you hear and would like to support Shane Plays Geek Talk, you can do so for as little as $1 per episode on Patreon at patreon.com/ShanePlays. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next time. Stay geeky, my friends.